get away from me. If I was you, I'd watch what you say to me. Snakes all in my bed, wanna lay with me. This ain't no motherfucking game, why you play with me? Don't play with me, this the only thing I love.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to Bubble Dribble Podcast. It's your boy Kase, the realest basketball fan alive, and I'm live from Las Vegas, Nevada, West Side. And I'm here with your boy Chuck from the Bay. What's going on, Chuck?
What's up?
Hey, and I'm also here with your boy Ben, straight from Australia. What's going on, bro?
Hey man, it's good. It's bloody cold here, but aside from that, living the dream, watching some hoops, loving it.
All right, for sure. And pretty much, welcome to season 1, episode 1. Pretty much, let me give you a background on this podcast. What the Bubble Dribble is it's the media platform for our NAA Fantasy League. This league is a 30-team dynasty league with real NBA salaries. You know, we started up simultaneously with the real NBA bubble startup. You know, we got members from all different parts of the world, jumped right into our draft, and it already started off with the boom, you know what I'm saying? So today's topic is season 1, episode 1. We're just going to go over the inaugural draft, do a recap on that. We're going to talk about the biggest sleepers, value picks, the reaches, the shit picks, you know, and just give an overall analysis. We're not going to get too much into individual team details, but just give our overall feeling of how this draft went. So you guys ready?
Yeah.
For sure.
All right. So I guess the first point we would like to highlight is the impact of salaries in this whole draft overall. And obviously, you know, with dynasty leagues, you know, youth is usually youth tends to go early. It plays a big part on how the draft plays out. But you know, when you throw in the impact of salaries, you know, these younger players are getting paid less. And that also, you know, made a bigger impact on these younger players going a lot earlier. So, you know, without further ado, we'd like to jump right into, you know, some of the early picks that surprised us. And I think the first one that surprised us the most was Lonzo Ball going in the first round. Chuck, let me get your analysis on that one.
All right. So, although young assets on small contracts are indeed valuable, the main reason why is because you can look for veterans or quality contributors in later rounds on larger contracts. However, generally speaking, because our cap is going to be modeled towards the luxury cap, salaries matter a bit less than normal salary leagues, right? Since normal salary leagues would be at this time the third team or about 109 mil a team. We're a whole max contract above that. So already it's just contracts do matter, but they matter a bit less with our league settings. However, the main issue I feel with Ball is not only that he was picked 26th, but that he was picked when Fox was available. From a fantasy profile, right? Not only does Fox have more free reign as he is quite literally the face of the Kings, he is also dynamically the exact same production in terms of statistics as Ball, except better in every category and regard.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, although this season he has suffered some injuries, he's significantly less injury prone than Lonzo Ball is. I just think there's quite literally no reason to take Lonzo Ball over De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah, I definitely understand that point of view. I would say as far as Lonzo Ball, you know, I'm a big believer in Lonzo Ball. You know, when he was drafted, I was actually saying that this guy has potential to be a top 5 point guard in within 5 to 7 years. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if you think about it now, that doesn't seem too much of a hot take, but I think back then it was. So I mean, based on his improvements and him kind of showing that what change of scenery can do to someone's game. I can see if you're a big believer. I'm not that mad at that, you know, especially with the salaries being involved. But I'm with you. I mean, me personally, I wouldn't have grabbed him there because you probably could have grabbed him later on in the draft. Ben, what do you think about that Lonzo Ball pick?
I mean, for the sake of 0.1 of an assist, for the sake of, you lose 10 points, like, I'm going to compare him just like chuck directly to De'Aaron Fox, because obviously he's the most similar player there. Sure, Alonzo played 12 more games this year. I mean, I don't really, over the course of their careers, Fox has been a much less injury-prone guy. I'm not sure how good of a metric that actually is. Injuries can just happen as part of the business. You've got to just accept that. But, I mean, for the sake of 0.58 free-throw shooting, 0.40 field goal percentage, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of it. I definitely take your point, Kase, and I see his potential. But for me, there's no way he goes before Fox. I'd probably take Brown before him. I'd take Robinson before him. There are so many other guys, other young guys, that I would take before him. I mean, he's 62nd overall ranked on #basketball's fantasy rankings. I mean, I think it was definitely a reach. I hope it pays off for the guy, but I mean, definitely a reach. Probably not one that I would take. I get where he's coming from, but looking at him right now as a player, looking at his efficiency, I don't like it. Nah.
Okay. Another controversial one that I think is controversial for me is I would say John Collins. That one I understand the upside with him and what he's shown over last year, but I think the addition of Capella, I actually expected that to kind of hurt his value as far as this goes. But are you guys surprised by him still going that high?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in our other league, I remember expressing extreme concern to Mutombo about Collins' fantasy production. And honestly, it's just the way we have to really address it is look at, in the past, what has happened that is similar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And quite literally, the Pacers had an exact mirror of this situation 2 years ago. The introduction of Sabonis in the Oklahoma City trade just made it so that when you have two big men, right, one of them is very good at defense, to be fair, both Collins and Capella are good defenders. Sabonis is a much better offensive player than Turner is, and Turner's a much better defensive player than Sabonis is. But either way, because Turner can stretch the floor and Sabonis simply cannot, right, the offensive scheme that the Pacers are running is, simply put, where Turner is basically a wing player.
Mm-hmm.
But he's in the body of a center, right? And right now, John Collins benefits a lot from running to the rim and in transition with Trae Young's passes as well, right? He gets a lot of free lobs every game. He gets a lot of pick and rolls that he sets with Trae Young.
Mm-hmm.
These roles and these plays are going to be given to Capella because he quite literally cannot do anything else. Capella is very offensively restricted because he does not even have the passing ability that Sabonis has, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just right now offensively, you just have to. It's a big question mark on Collins' usage in the offense and his rebounding numbers because when you have a pure center like Capella on the floor alongside you, you're going to be passed in your coach's rotations offensively to be more near the perimeter. So that's just less rebounds, less opportunities to get blocks in the defensive scheme, and less overall usage because Capella's just going to eat at the looks you got last season from Young.
Mm-hmm. Ben, what you think about that Collins pick?
Oh man, I think he should have gone earlier. He's in my mind, he's a top 10 guy easily. Nice, right? Like if you look at the exact date of the trade, which was February the 6th, on February the 7th, he dropped 32 points, 16 rebounds, on .632 field goal efficiency. Like this is a guy that can ball that has tremendous upside, and he has that center eligibility, which is surprisingly important in this format. Like for me, he's easily a top 10 guy. Like
nice.
Gotta love John the Baptist. I agree with everything Charles said about the pairing with Capella. He's going to feast as a result of that. But I think you got to reach for him before Aiden, before Bam, probably before Shai as well.
That makes sense. I would add to your point. I would also say that this is a dynasty league, so like when we're drafting young guys, we should
Mm.
focus more on talent as opposed to the team that they're or just the team scenario, because I mean, unless you're someone like Chuck who's drafting the trade, you know what I'm saying? But overall, I would say what does give Collins a lot of hope in his situation is the fact that he has Trey Young as his
Mm.
guard. So I mean, Trey Young looks like the future Chris Paul without defense. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that. I mean, I don't know if that's a reach, but we'll see how that goes with him. Um, Another thing I like to refer to, you mentioned Sabonis,
Mm.
and I understand, right after he was drafted, the injury report came out of him getting hurt, so that may have hurt his draft stock if that news came out earlier, but overall, I mean, me personally, I'm just not, even if he was healthy, I'm just not a big fan of him going in the first round. Um, I understand that what he showed in Indiana, but it's one of those things where there's nothing about him to me that just gives me first round talent. You feel me? Like, I mean, he's a smart player overall. He understands his role and he plays it well. He's nice, big, and strong, and everything. But I'm a big unless you're just gonna overall punch stocks. You know, I like to get some stocks from my big man. Like get some blocks in there. But overall, what do you guys think of Sabonis?
Well, the main issue with bonus is that he has a 6'11" wingspan.
Hmm.
He does not have the length to reliably grab the stocks in the passing lanes that other more lengthier big men do, right? And he's never been known as a terrific shot blocker. He's not terrible on defense, but definitely
Hmm.
post defense is not something he's great at either. But the fact that he only has a 6'11" wingspan really more so pieces together that he more likely than not will not average more stocks or be able to grab more stocks in his career
Hmm.
from the perspective that we can see so far. But I agree with you completely. He's a terrific center in every regard, aside from the fact that he just cannot grab stocks, right? He
Hmm.
shoots clean percentages, free throw percentages. His free throw percentage it could trend up. It doesn't really
Yeah.
require too much trending up. He still shoots 73%. That's already not bad for a center. That is just a bit under league average, especially when you're considering the center position. That is pretty good. It's just fantasy value wise, without stocks, it's just very difficult to quantify him because he cannot it's really hard for him to improve in other counting categories. His usage is already extremely high. It's
Hmm.
24%. Well, not 24%, but he has a usage of 24. He,
Yeah.
he's just it's just hard to see his fantasy production increase outside of stocks and free throw percentage, right?
Yeah.
And
In other words, like just based on watching him, he doesn't seem like the guy that a team will give more opportunities based on the opportunities he's already getting.
yeah, basically,
Hmm.
he's not going to be more involved in the offense than he already has
Hmm.
been, realistically
Hmm.
speaking.
Ben, what you think of Sabonis? You taking him in the first round?
Well, I mean, full disclosure, I've got Sabonis at the moment, so I'm going to have to step out and defend my boy here. The element which I think we should be discussing is his 4 year, $18.5 million contract. For that level of
Hmm.
production, to have a guy on 18.5 mil, I think is an absolute steal in this format. So I think like keeping that in mind, I think he is a great asset. Like objectively though, I mean, you're absolutely right about the stocks. Personally, I'm punting block, so he's absolutely great for me. But those 5 assists, 12.4 rebounds, fantastic. I mean, if Turner gets moved, I mean, do you guys think Turner's going to get moved? What do you guys think the situation's going to be like there in Indiana? Like, do you see Sabonis like taking more threes and potentially having to reach for more blocks if Turner gets moved, or do you guys not see Turner going at this stage?
I mean, honestly, I just don't see him as a high. Well, I don't want to say low effort, but like honestly, on defense, he's not the guy that is striking me. That's going to get a lot of steals and blocks overall. Just on his playing style.
To be fair though, if you are punting blocks, then Sabonis his value does increase obviously because he's a
For
negative
sure.
block category.
For sure.
I mean, for builds wise, if you're punting blocks or if you're maybe stop punting steals, then Sabonis is a great value because he also contributes to the steals. His turnovers do hurt you a bit, but getting 5 assists from your center is a lot to ask from, right?
Yeah, and I like the point that you brought up about his contract because this is a salary league, so it definitely does boost his value overall here. But I mean, I don't want to be too negative about the early round. Let's talk about the positives. And I think the number one value pick here is Damian Lillard going all the way to the second round. Like, I mean, when I think about that, I just say shame on us overall.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
That's my but I thought that he went this late because of the super max that he is getting. Towards the end of his contract, he's getting up to like 55 mil, and he'll be around, I don't know, 35, 36. So that's what kind of turned me off him in the earlier round. But I mean, on the second round, I mean, he got picked up right before my pick, and I'm not gonna lie, I was yelling Dame time, right? But before I got sniped. So I mean, how you guys feel about Damian Lillard going that late?
I honestly think in our salary league with our luxury cap max, I don't think that contract's going to be too much of a problem. I can 100% agree. Like if we were 30 million down in salary, that max contract is very hard to house because just one more max player on your roster, and you're very, very spread thin on salary. But in a league where we have a lot more room to work with, I personally don't see a problem with that contract. And he going at 37 is just very criminal.
And the salary cap increases every year. That's another factor that people may be sleeping on. Ben, what you think about it? Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just saying, even if the salary cap doesn't increase, his super max will be scaled down towards it.
Yeah.
His current projection is based
You're
off
right.
of how big the salary cap will increase, right?
Absolutely.
So it's really not too threatening, I'd say.
Okay. Well, what you think about Dame Dollar, Ben?
I don't really have much to say. I mean, he's a top 3, top 4 guy. Like he should not have gone. Where did he go? 37. Like, I mean, I agree with everything you guys said. Like, it's not. I think like I see why some people would stray away from him based on his age and his contract. But I mean, realistically, he's going to be Portland's main offensive option for the next 4 years. So you're getting that probably worst case scenario top 15 value from that guy for 5 years, which is amazing for the second round. Like he's great. There isn't really much more to say. I mean, I'm also interested in what you guys think. Just going back to the first round of Zion going third overall. Do you guys agree with that? Or because I mean, I was pretty shocked that he went for Hart and Carl Newtowns and Davis. So what do you guys think about that? About Zion's prospects as a fantasy player?
I'm glad you pointed that out actually, because that did the minute that pick was made, my reaction was like, whoa, this is going to be a wild draft. but honestly, I mean the thing about me is like I like to put myself in everybody's shoes, so like I ain't mad at the pick. I mean, he's the first overall pick. He could potentially be, this time last year, he was pretty much, being compared to LeBron and whatnot. I mean, if you know basketball, you were probably comparing him more to Charles Barkley. But overall, based on what he showed and over last season and that salary on top of that, I mean, that pick could be worth it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I personally love the pick because it means that I was able to get one of Towns, Harden, or Davis. So I had no qualms about it. I was very happy. The moment I saw Zion pick, I was like, yes, sir.
But he's ranked outside the top 100. I mean, Derek White is ranked higher than Zion. Like, I totally understand the potential argument, but I mean, I don't know. I'm not that high on him for fantasy purposes. Like, sure, he has a good field goal percentage, but everything else is pretty pretty meh in my view. I don't know if that's a controversial viewpoint, but I mean, it's not like someone like Carl P. Towns who's straight out of the gate. You're like, yeah, this guy's going to be top 5 overall in fantasy draft leagues for the next 10 years, right? Like,
Yeah.
I just don't know if I'm that high on it. I'm interested to know why, like in fantasy, you guys are so high. Like, where do you see his numbers improving? Like, where do you guys see like him taking that step, going from being 133rd overall to being catapulted into like the top 20?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like realistically speaking, the main thing is with taking someone number 3 is that you are passing up on other talent that is guaranteed to be putting up top 5 fantasy seasons, right? You are passing up on talent that is guaranteed to be putting up top 5 numbers. So realistically, I mean, I understand it's from a future investment standpoint.
For sure.
It makes sense, but I mean, with someone with as many risks as Zan does pose in terms of his injuries and his weight, I find it. I mean, if you're a believer, go ahead. I think if you're a believer, you can take it wherever you want. But,
and think of this. I honestly, I think he could be worth the shot because if you think about it, his play has lived up to the hype. His actual play. You know what I'm saying? Like when you watch him play, like he's not disappointing you overall. You know, I mean, the only thing that he's disappointing you is about his weight and his minutes restrictions. But I mean, just think of the long-term aspect. I mean, this could turn around as soon as next year. You know, think about this too. Like the consensus, like everybody is pretty aware of this. If he played the whole season, he would have been Rookie of the Year. As amazing as Ja has looked. You know what I'm saying? So if you take that into consideration, I mean, this Zion pick, even though I mean it's not a steal because it's 3rd overall, but it could be worth paying off, especially if you're someone that just loves Zion.
yeah, for sure. It's just also another fantasy question mark around him is his free throw percent. I mean,
For sure.
he's been a career, college and high school as well. He's been shooting very poorly at the line, much like his buddy RJ Barrett. He's just shot very poorly at the line. And it's not like it's not fixable. He can improve for sure. It's just it is worrisome when a 21-year-old after playing basketball for as long as they have is shooting at that low of a clip.
Oh, for sure. What were they giving them to shoot? I mean, Reddish has a pretty crappy free throw percentage as well. Like
they both shot in the mid-60s. Yeah, they both shot mid-60s.
Yeah.
I mean, it could improve over time. It's just right now we do see there's just, in my opinion, I personally dislike taking risks on injuries.
Yeah.
That's just something that can end your season, right? Just immediately, like there's nothing you can do. If you lose your best fantasy asset in the middle of a season, it's nearly impossible for you to win the chip that year unless you're either.
Oh yeah, for sure. If I mean in a league like this, if your top 2 guys are done, like pretty much your season is done, unless you have a deep team. If you have a deep team and punted well, then you could make it to the playoffs, like you saw with Mutombo and the Hawks in our other league. You know, like he was dealing with injuries all year, but he still slid into the playoffs. You know, because he drafted well. So I mean, we could actually address that actually, and we could probably look at, the Kevin Durant pick, like as far as him going in the 2nd round. Like, how do you guys feel about that?
I honestly think Curry and Durant went perfectly fine where they did. I think the risk versus reward taking the picks near the early and middle of the 2nd round is perfectly fine because they're both, when healthy 2 years ago, top 5 fantasy players, right? So realistically, taking them near 40, even in a Saturday league, it still makes sense in my opinion. It's very much so worthwhile.
Yeah, and something that I'll touch on more when we talk about youth going early is the impact of the league being disrupted and guys having way more time than they usually would have to rehab their injuries. I mean, I see Curry and Durant. Both these guys are going to benefit enormously from like the increased amount of time they're going to have to rehab, the decreased amount of pressure on them to get back on the court as quickly as possible. Obviously, Curry came back towards the end of last season, but I mean, for both of these guys, I see this as being a really good thing, and having that extended break, I think, will extend both of their careers. Considering they're both fantastic shooters as well.
Exactly. Perimeter players, that's a big factor in this. Perimeter players and injuries, they tend to, get over injuries better because you're not driving as much. But
Mm.
but I would say this as far as Kevin Durant and Curry, I think what people may not be paying attention to is that this is their first time being away from each other since these guys were, warriors or whatnot. So if you look at the last time they were on separate teams, these guys were number 1 and 2 in fantasy. It wasn't Harden. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, even when they were together on the same team.
You know what I'm saying? Exactly. They were still top 5. So
Even when they were together, they were both top 3.
You know what I'm saying?
Even when they were both together. I'm just saying they were both top 3.
I think the year before that, before they got together, Curry was the number 1 player, and the year before that, Durant was the number 1 player.
And then when they were 1, the other was 2 for both 14, 15, and 15, 16.
Yeah, and if you think about but both of these people have something to prove. You know what I'm saying? I think everybody's sleeping on the Warriors dynasty, and I think the Warriors have a chip on their shoulder again, similar to, you remember how they won the first chip, and everybody said, "Oh no," I said, because you ran into injuries and stuff like that, and then they went for that 73-9 season.
Yeah.
I think they have a similar chip on their shoulder where everybody's like, "Yeah, no Durant, you're done." So
yeah.
I think
Curry plays better without Durant on the team, just in terms of the amount of shots, the amount of looks he gets, the amount of touches. Like for him, I mean, good on the. Oh, it was me, yeah, for drafting him. But yeah, I mean, I think they're both no-brainers. Salary wise, they could hurt. They could hurt.
Yeah.
But the risk versus reward.
And I think that risk versus reward also applies to picks like Paul George, Jimmy Butler, a lot of the vets that. Oh, go ahead.
No, I see what you mean by that, but to be fair,
Yeah.
Other vets like Butler, George, and Holiday, they do have risk as well because they have, in recent memory, right, injury issues, but they don't have a major long-term injury. Well, the thing is, Curry has also been somewhat injury-prone the last 2 years, and Durant tore his Achilles, obviously, right? I mean, Durant's injury is more long-term of a question mark than Curry's, because Curry just tore his thumb ligament. That's not much of an issue at all. So while the injury issues do surround other vets too, it's just these two have been long-term gone for a while, right? Well, everyone else, though, they do have certain bugs here and there with George's shoulder surgery and Butler's general soreness. I feel like it's just less risky when you're considering them than 2 people who have missed basically the entire season in terms of how they'll be playing when they come back. But no, I really do think Curry and Durant are definitely in for 2 top 10 finishes fantasy-wise. I don't see it not happening.
Nice. Yeah, and this is pretty much all impacted by salaries. They're both being paid $40 million. Those are more the expensive players, but I mean the value could be worth it based on the fantasy value. So I mean, as far as salary goes, I was about to talk about how it impacted the current waiver wire, but I don't want to get in the way of anybody that has any plans of after we update the salaries, like if they're targeting anybody, I don't want to ruin that for anybody. So take a look at the waiver wire. There's some interesting guys over there. After free agency comes around, you could pick up. So that goes that. So yeah, I want to double down on this, topic of youth going so early in the draft, and I guess I could start off with the first overall pick going at the 33rd pick. What do you guys think about that? The draft picks and whatnot.
I mean, as someone who's very high on the 2020-2021 draft, I still don't like it. I mean, I don't think there's a clear guy coming out the front of that draft class. I really like Edwards. I really like Ball. I really like Wiseman. I really like Onyeka. I really like Danny. Danny, right? I think they're all great guys, but when you don't have that clear Zion, Carl-Anthony Towns type guy coming out on top of the draft, for me that really devalues it because, and especially we were discussing before we started recording the impact of March Madness not happening. Like there hasn't really been a chance for a guy to step forward like Trae Young did in March Madness a couple of years ago. Like the problem with taking the first overall pick there is the person who should go first could be taken as late as like 6th or 8th in this draft. I see that happening very easily. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, I agree completely. It's just right now. I feel like rookie picks might be a bit overhyped because of Zion. As weird as that sounds, that is, in my opinion, just people are like, wow, Zion, huge fantasy asset wise, right?
Yeah, John Morant.
Exactly, and people are like, we need to go get. Now, maybe in 1 year, this pick I took in the second round is going to be a first-round pick for, more likely than not in their eyes.
Yeah.
Just in this draft, we don't see a clear hierarchy aside from the talent-wise. In reality, it is either Ball, Edwards, or Wiseman in the top 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then Onyeka, Danny, those. It's just for right now, it's just really hard to place down concrete evaluation,
like rankings, because we don't know the teams yet. Yeah, we don't. We don't know the teams. Yeah, that's
for sure. But also, it's just
you guys are referring more to like the March Madness and the exposure that they get from that.
Yeah, it's just in all reality right now, all we see is box scores of their collegiate or European play, right? And we see certain interviews or highlight clips. That's about it. That's all we have to go off of. And that does paint somewhat of a picture. I mean, we discussed this a bit earlier before we started. I mean, if you take a look at last year, Morant would have been a late lottery pick, for example. Clark would have been. Clark's main value came post the fantasy draft in Summer League, where he showed that he was indeed an extreme contributor, ready to impact now fantasy-wise and real life-wise, right? And it's just so many things move around in terms of value that box scores in college cannot really tell the whole picture.
Yeah, you need
especially in terms of how ready they are for the NBA.
Yeah, you got to watch them actually kind of visualize them in the league.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I mean, like we've been so spoiled with drafts in the last couple of years. You know, like last year we had Zion. The year before that we had that was crazy. You know, we had Doncic, we had Ayton, we had Trae Young. You know, like obviously this draft class is not going to be as good as that one. But I think it's very much in people's minds from the last couple of years when you're getting like top 15 value for the second or the third pick, people are going to reach for that. But I think this draft class doesn't necessarily have that value. I mean, I think Edwards has an incredibly high ceiling. I really like Wiseman's game, but it's not like you're drafting Doncic here. Like it's a totally different situation. But I understand that is in the back of people's minds whenever they're looking at picks like this. I probably wouldn't have taken the first overall pick, the 33rd. It goes back to what Charles was saying about you have guaranteed top 20 contributors there. I'm not a risk taker either, but yeah, if Edwards turns out being Harden 2.0, then sure, I'm wrong, but I don't necessarily see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, when I look at that pick, I know the main knock on this draft is not there's not a lot of upside talent at the top. Overall, like we don't see superstar talent in this draft. But overall, I mean, me personally, I just like the heart behind grabbing the pick right there. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm just watching some of these picks, and I'm like, I mean, that was an overall number one pick. That was overall. You know what I'm saying? And I'm kind of wondering, like, when is the overall number for this draft going to be picked? And then it wasn't until the second round. But overall, Chuck, how you mentioned Edwards, LaMelo, and Wiseman kind of being like a three. I think it's two right now. I think Wiseman has kind of fallen below those two overall. I mean, but based on what I hear from scouts and just college people, they're pretty much saying LaMelo is a clear cut number one based on his passing ability. They think that's like. I mean, it's funny how Ben just said you're not getting a Trey Young, but they say it's like they kind of try to compare it to Trey Young, overall. But I don't know. That this guy's been in the limelight and if since like freshman year of high school.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember his clip of shooting that half court shot, and it's crazy that he's already in the draft. You know what I'm saying?
I watched him play in Australia as well, like because he was just playing like 100 kilometers away or 70 miles away from where I live, and like I really watched a few of his games. Like he's a great player, but I've seen Trey Young play as well. I just don't think he's on the same level. I mean, for me, Edwards is the clear number one pick, but I don't want to give away too much.
I agree. Like Edwards and Nine Cat does not seem that enticing purely because reality is he is a pure scorer, right? He is by definition a pure scorer. He will contribute some in rebounds and assists and some counting stats, but reality, the gravity of the fantasy value in Edwards is he's gonna be a pure raw scorer. So points leagues wise, very nice, right? Same with LaMelo, points leagues wise. Very nice. I for sure in 9-cat value, I really do think it's LaMelo v. Wiseman based on what stats you think you need or you value more.
Yeah, and I honestly, like with me, like we're not talking about real basketball here. We're talking about fantasy. So that's the thing is that I feel the exact same way about Edwards. His fantasy profile doesn't really intrigue me either. Like when I look at him, I think this guy has to average 27 points per game to be worth it overall, And I start to think of Andrew Wiggins type of player, you know what I'm saying? But we'll see, man. I mean, if the thing about this league is about work ethic. So if he could put if he could put the work in, I think Andrew Wiggins could have been a great player. He just doesn't put the necessary work in to get there. But none of these guys really strike me as a first round type of profiles in fantasy. Like even LaMelo Ball, like for a guy like him, you would want him to get to. I feel like he'll be missing the stocks. You know what I'm saying? And you know how that kind of handicaps Sabonis to some degree. I think that could be LaMelo. That could be LaMelo in this league. But the guy that I like overall as far as fantasy profile, I really like Onyeka Okongwu. Especially when they compare him to Bam Adebayo. That's just a guy that could fill the stat sheet if he kind of fits into the right system. Like, we're starting to see Jokic. I mean, people don't talk about this, but Jokic is changing the game. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think now that we see Bam surfacing, I think we can attribute it to, like, what Jokic is doing. So I think you will get more of these centers where the game runs through them and they get more of, more assists. Kind of like Marc Gasol-ish, you know what I'm saying? He was kind of early in doing that, but yeah, that's kind of how I see this number one pick. I would rather wait if I wanted an early pick. I'd rather wait and then grab me like the third or fourth pick and kind of grab whoever falls out of the top 3 or 4. But yeah, I mean, I like the intention behind it. I like the heart. So salute to that for sure.
Yeah, just very quickly before we move on back to that thing about like the first overall pick in fantasy terms versus best overall player in terms of being ready to go into the NBA. Like, I think Thompson is easily the best fantasy player. He's picking up 1.2 blocks, 1.3 steals. His free throw percentage is putrid, but his field goal percentage is 67.4. That's crazy. Like, he should have 40% from three. Like,
well, I mean, to be fair, in field goal percentage wise, James Wiseman in his 3 games shot above 70.
Yeah, but he's a center though, right? Like, Thompson's a forward. Like, centers do that in college all the time. But for a forward to have like above 60%, a guy that shoots threes constantly, whereas like Wiseman's more of a I mean I'm really high on Wiseman. I really like him, but I think Toppin is he's either going to be a fantastic fantasy asset or it's with pass. Like I don't think there's much middle ground for that, because the second he gets NBA defenders on him, that field goal might just dip dramatically. Anyway.
Yeah. And I mean, to wrap up the draft talk, I mean, I will say that, I mean, just the early picks, I think, you know how they say there's not really potential, superstar talent. I think there is, like, the top 6 to 7 picks, I think, do have, like, all-star potential, if you ask me. Like, if they really check the boxes that they can. But, I mean, as far as one that you could just trust, yeah, there's not. I don't really trust any of those, honestly. But I guess we can move on from that one. Let's jump over here to the 5th and 6th round, because I think it got very interesting. Due to youth being taken so early, people trying to save salaries early on. A lot of these older, expensive players that still have pretty much top 20, top 30 value, maybe. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I might be reaching, but like even top 40 value, I would say there, like started to go around the 5th or 6th round in a 30 team draft. So I guess I'll start with the beginning of it. I think the sequence of Kyle Kuzma, Draymond Green, and Andrew Wiggins, kind of going there. Like, what do you guys think about that sequence right there?
I think Green was a perfectly fine pick at 122. I think he should have maybe gone early hundreds. I'm just obviously my stance on Wiggins. Obviously, most people know my stance on Wiggins. I just don't. I'm not a believer that his percentages will be better. But I mean, to be fair, he is showing. He did shoot nearly 45% of the field this year. And he's always had decent stocks. I'm just not a believer that he can maintain anywhere near that 45% clip. It could happen. He could improve his shot selection even more so. But then again, it does depend on where he ends up in his career. I don't think Kyle Kuzma is ever going to return like top 100. I think it's possible. If once LeBron leaves or he's in a situation without LeBron, but for someone that's a low stocks player, you need a far higher usage where your other stats explode for you to be powerful, right? He's not getting many boards next to Twin Towers being ran with Davis and either Howard or McGee. He's in his current situation, obviously, I'm assuming Brett is just looking toward the future with Kuzma. He has the talent as a natural scorer, but until the LeBron era in the Lakers is gone, or until LeBron or him leave, it's not looking like he's going to be able to contribute much at all in a consistent level. He can get hot a few nights, and then some nights will get very cold, right? But that's just for the time being. And really, all we can really see with that pick is just potential. It's not a now pick whatsoever, because he's not going to contribute.
Ben, what you think about Draymond?
Well, I mean, just going back to all three of those guys, I would have taken them in reverse order. I would have gone Wiggins, Green, Kuzma, simply because I think Wiggins in Golden State has the best chance of having a very efficient year. He's going to be put next to Curry and Thompson, who have consistently helped small forwards that are inefficient. I mean, Barnes is a great example of that. I see him as being a very similar player. Draymond, obviously, triple single. He is a hell of a player in fantasy. I mean, you're getting 6.2 rebounds, 6.2 assists, 1.4 steals, close to a block. Like, I agree with Charles. It's fine to take him there, but I probably would take Wiggins before him, just because of what we were talking about before, like the potential there with Wiggins. He's a number 1 overall pick. He's bounced around a bit, but he has early this season. I remember him showing flashes of his potential when he gets put in a good situation. I think he's been in bad situations, and there's only so much of that you can say. Oh, he's been in bad situations for his entire career. before you start to say, maybe he's just a bad player. But I think we have seen flashes of that potential of efficient scoring, of taking good threes. Like, I would probably take him before. I see more upside in Wiggins and Kuzma for sure. But in terms, like, if you're trying to win now, Draymond's obviously the guy that you would take. But for a fantasy dynasty format, I think Wiggins is clearly the best one out of those three. But then again, personally, I would have taken Chris Paul or Kyle Lowry before any of those guys. But I had serious salary issues, so yeah, I couldn't.
Yeah. I mean, if you're talking salary, I mean, Chris Paul does have a fat contract. It's like almost double Wiggins, pretty much. But I mean, me personally, I mean, how I said Andrew, I mean, how Anthony Edwards could potentially have like an Andrew Wiggins kind of thing. The thing is, like, I mean, that's not an insult because me personally, like, I actually like Wiggins' potential. Like when I watch him, I like his ability to score. I mean, I honestly feel like he makes a lot of star type of plays. You know what I'm saying? But the only thing that gets in his way is IQ, and I just think his just maturity. You know what I'm saying? I feel like what gets in his way is he doesn't really. You know how, like, how Ben, you just said he was in bad situations. To me, I'm like, is he in the bad situation or is he part of the bad situation?
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I'm saying? Because honestly, like, he's the number one pick, like Chuck said and everything. And it's like, if you're the number one pick, we rely on you to at least be like a Paul George. Like, come on, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
but he's been playing in Minnesota. I mean, this is his chance. If he doesn't get traded from Golden State, I think on balance he will likely be traded from Golden State for somebody. But I mean, if he can't do it in Golden State with Curry and Thompson next to him, that's it for me. I've given up on him. But I mean, Minnesota's just such a terrible system.
But I'll say this about Wiggins. At least he's averaging, like, I think he's averaged 20 points per game or close to that, like, over the years and whatnot. So that does count for something. And he just comes across to me as one of those guys that, like, once he gets his head in the game, man, like, he can start to surprise some guys. You know what I'm saying? So I really like the Andrew Wiggins pick. I like the Kyle Kuzma pick as well because it's a dynasty league. He's still young. We shouldn't get too caught up in a player's situation when it's a young guy. You know what I'm saying? So like you said, like Chuck said, when LeBron, I mean, of course, LeBron is the reason Kyle Kuzma isn't really getting into he's not having the type of regular season he could be having. I mean, his maturity as a player is going to definitely be faster being under LeBron. You know what I'm saying? So it could work out positively for him in the long run. But overall, just from a fantasy perspective, he's not going to get the usage and whatnot to be the scorer that he could be. And as far as Draymond Green, I think his triple double potential and how he fills the stat sheets could be slept on, especially the type of season they just had last season. We could shit on that, but overall, I mean, I think this Warriors team has a chip on their shoulder. He might come out. The only downside is I'm worried about rest days. As far as when you're on a championship contending team, the older you get, the more resting you have to do, and we've seen over the years, like at least the past two years, Draymond had to rest towards the end of the season. So I usually tend to avoid those type of players that need to rest. That'll probably be at the top of the standings and whatnot. So I guess that's what goes for those picks. I guess we can migrate to, like, let's look at Hassan Whiteside. What y'all think about him going in the 5th round?
I don't think he gets a starting role unless it's on a team that's he's gonna give up on halfway through the season. When we've seen when he's on a contender and he's trying to play for his contract and he's given minutes, we know the type of player Hassan Whiteside is, right? When that happens.
Mm-hmm.
But if he signs a long-term deal, I just don't see him caring. I don't see him caring enough to play
Okay.
basketball if he's not on a team that's trying to win. And I don't think any teams are trying to win aside from maybe the Celtics. I
Yeah.
don't want him to take a cap on the Celtics,
Yeah.
but I just hard to see him getting a role like he's on the Blazers again.
So overall, you're saying he's playing this good boy act just to get the contract.
Oh, of course. It's not even.
All right,
I don't even
sure.
think that's a hot take. I think that's
Mhm.
exactly what he's doing.
Oh
Right?
no. Yeah, I like the perspective. I was just putting it into a sentence. Ben, what you think about Hassan Whiteside? And then you could talk about Chris Paul after that.
Oh yeah, dude. Hassan Whiteside is going to be one of the first times in the history of fantasy basketball that a guy goes from being top 10 to below 150. Like he's like sure he might get 1.5 blocks in his next situation, but look, look at the way he's playing now that Nurkic is back on the roster. Like the second you have a legit guy in that number one center option, like as the number one center, like he's just not good. He doesn't put in the effort. He was fantastic while Nurkic was out. Now Nurkic is back. He's finished all of that, I think, because they're just not going to want to retain him for the price he's going to attract. And then I think you guys are both right. When he gets paid, he's like you guys have seen him put in zero effort on defense. He hits his blocks just so he can look like a great defensive player. But I mean, I think those are pretty empty stats, and I think most teams would probably recognise that by now. But I mean, I think it is genuinely quite remarkable that he's going to go from being top 10 to, I would say, below 150. I mean, he is a high risk, high reward pick, and I respect him being taken in that range, because if he does continue at that level and he proves, I think, just about everyone wrong, fantastic. You've gotten the guy that gets better fantasy stats than Joel Embiid. Where did he go? In the 5th round or the 6th round? Like that's fantastic upside, but I don't really see it happening. It is high risk, high reward, and I respect that. And no hate to whoever took him, but I mean, I personally don't see it panning out.
Okay.
Also, he went early 5th round.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's fine in terms of taking a gamble on him. But there are others that I probably would take for him, like this one.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I think it's fine to take him in the 5th. I personally am not very high on him, but I know the potential if he does get a starting spot and ball out, the potential's there. It could happen. It would go against a lot of things that we've seen from him, but it could happen.
All right, you guys taking Conley at 34 mil or Chris Paul at 41 mil?
I mean, I have Chris Paul right now, so obviously Chris Paul for sure, right?
All right, I mean, that's biased. Ben, what you think?
Yeah, a little biased on that.
I mean, what are you going to say about Paul? Like, he gets fantastic assists, fantastic efficiency. Like, his free throws are great. It's just that contract and his high ability to maintain his level of play once Shai keeps taking those steps forward as a player. Like what he's done in OKC has been amazing. I think to me he's the kind of player that will keep that production up, but then will just suddenly drop off a cliff in a similar way to Steve Nash. But I mean, he's a top 20 asset for me. Obviously, with dynasty, he dips down probably into that range. If I had the cap to take him, I definitely would have taken him. Definitely would have taken him early 5th round rather than 6th round. But I understand why he slipped there. But yeah, what are your thoughts, guys?
Oh yeah, for sure. Those are definitely picks that I would try to strategically target, but I failed in doing that. But I would say, I would take Chris Paul, definitely because of the upside. Because I mean, just his steals, assists combo, and then and threes, and then if he shoots well from the field for a season, like his value goes way up, So I mean, getting that type of that range of a player, like a potential top 20 player in a season, that late in a 30-team draft. That's just value right there. That's like you said, like if you have the cap space and whatnot. Let's look a little. Are there any picks in this range you guys wanted to point out, or any sleepers that's on your minds?
I think Mo Bamba's potentially really interesting because, like, he's screwed at the moment, right? Like, he's playing behind an all-star center. He's never going to get the touches that he needs to be a productive fantasy basketball player. But he's still hitting two blocks a game. I see him as kind of being similar to Chris Dunn insofar as, like, he's a specialist in that category. But he is still really young, Like, I'm not sure how I feel about him being taken before Chris Paul, obviously. But I think he's a really interesting guy, and I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on, like, where you see Mo Bamba developing. Do you see him, continuously regressing before he's, a G League player? Obviously the song was better than the player at this point. But where do you guys see him developing to?
I just don't understand why the Magic re-signed Vucevic. Sorry, we were talking about Mo Bamba, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, my bad. I don't know for I don't understand why you would draft a big man with extreme promise and re-sign a veteran and not do a sign and trade. Honestly, it's just, I understand the whole aspect that, okay, if we let Vucevic walk for free, we are fucking ourselves, right? We can't attract free agents. We're a shitly ran franchise. We need to retain as many assets as we can. But I don't know if you can ever say that that's worth it to stunt the growth of someone who just took 6th in a 2018 draft a year prior. You need to give him minutes in order for him to get the experience he needs to play at the NBA level. And you're not trying to win right now because there's no way you ever win a championship with that roster. Well, what's the point of competing? Why not just get another high lottery pick?
No. They were actually trying to win the championship this year. They were running Isaac out there.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, are they really winning, right? Yeah. I mean, it's just, the Magic doesn't make sense. You're forcing yourself to be stuck in obscurity for no reason. You're in basketball hell. The Magic are in absolute basketball hell. You're not ass enough.
Basketball hell.
You're not ass enough to get a top lottery pick. You're wasting the talents of your lottery picks, and you're never gonna win with what you have right now. How can you be a Magic fan? How can you be a Magic fan? Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's almost as bad as being a Knicks fan, Like, at least
it's nearly as bad. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's nearly as bad as being a Knicks fan
Really
right now.
Man, I've got my Mitchell Robinson jersey on my wall. It's there very proudly, and advanced stats MVP. I mean, just as well in the 5th round. I like your pick, Charles, of Fournier, at 145. Like, he's very good. I'm just trying to look as well. Robert Williams, great upside, relatively low floor on him. Yeah, I mean, 5 and 6 is always where the value is. And whenever we have and I guess this segues nicely into our next topic, if we want to talk about it now, like behind under the table trades. Like, I always try and pick a couple of players in round 5 and 6, and give up picks in 2 and 3. Do you guys want to talk about that now?
I mean, the moment Tatum got drafted, I'm like, all right, I gotta hit the guy up because I mean, you guys know the people from the league know, like, Tatum's just my guy. Like, I have to have him, right? But I'm also not passing up on Anthony Davis to take Jason Tatum. I feel like it's just when you see someone you want available, you would just contact someone with a pick in that range and be like, hey, what could we do for you to take this? What can you do for you to send me that pick, right? I feel like that happened quite a bit, more so than just all the stuff that went down. Just a lot of talks went around, just the secure players that people saw available that they valued more than where the pick was at that time.
Aha!
I want to see.
So we caught you.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, it happened. Yeah, it happened. Yeah, it happened. It
Right on
happened.
time at the 1 hour mark.
I agree. It
Ladies
happened.
and gentlemen, we got it. Yeah. Speaking of that, should we go through that crazy 17 trade and just
I
very quickly
think
talk
we
about
do that
No,
that?
next
no.
time when we
Let's
finally.
yeah. Because right now, right now what's hot on the pantry right now is Chuck just snitched on himself that he was making a shitload of under the table deals whenever the raise that he wanted.
I'm saying it happened everywhere. It's not. It wasn't just me. I just gotta say, it wasn't just me.
No,
I can.
you triggered it.
To be fair, I don't name any names, but I'm pretty sure certain two other people were also slinging them alongside me.
I'm aware. I'm aware.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Charles. That's just defamatory at best.
I'm aware. I'm aware. But we got to blame everything on Chuck. So there you go.
True, we do have a dedicated channel to fuck Chuck.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah. So pretty much that's what was gonna happen. Next time around, we're going to talk about the huge wave of trade that we had. Pretty much, to wrap this up, I would pretty much say this is opinions, not facts. You know what I'm saying? Anything you disagree with, leave us a comment, send a message. Always willing to debate like you see. You know what I'm saying? And next episode, we'll be breaking down the first wave of trades. And boy, it was a big one. Let me tell you. And then after that, we'll get more into individual team details. And with that being said, thank you for listening to the Bubble Dribble Podcast. It's the realest basketball fan alive, Kase, with your boys Chuck and Ben, and we out.
Get away from me. If I was you, I'd watch what you say to me. Snakes all in my bed, wanna lay with me. This ain't no motherfucking game, why you play with me?